Have you ever thought about a video game that didn't just push the boundaries of its genre, but also, ignited this huge global conversation, challenging perceptions about its very nature?
It happens sometimes with quite unexpected titles.
Exactly. And today, we're taking a deep dive into a title that fits that description perfectly. Resident Evil 5.
Ah, RE5. Definitely a game that made waves.
Released back in 2009, this wasn't just another sequel in a beloved franchise, right? It felt like a truly pivotal moment.
Oh, absolutely. Not just for Resident Evil itself, but you could argue for the broader gaming landscape too.
For sure.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how Resident Evil 5 managed to balance its groundbreaking ambition with this really intense level of scrutiny.
Yeah, that scrutiny was significant.
It makes it a unique case study, really. Our exploration today, we're going to cover its innovative gameplay, its incredibly ambitious development journey.
Which was quite something.
Its undeniable commercial success, and crucially, the complex and significant controversies it faced.
Particularly those serious allegations of racism. We have to talk about that.
We absolutely do. It's a rich tapestry of achievement and challenge, isn't it?
It really is. So our mission today is to unpack the entire sprawling story behind Resident Evil 5.
Lay it all out.
We're going to pull from a stack of diverse sources that give us the full picture, allowing us to explore all facets, even the uncomfortable ones.
Transparency is key here, especially with the sensitive topics.
Exactly. To provide you, our listener, with a complete, nuanced, and impartial understanding of this incredibly influential game.
Let people draw their own conclusions based on the information.
This deep dive aims to arm you with the full context so you can draw your own informed conclusions. So let's get started. Okay, let's unpack this dramatic shift first. Because Resident Evil 5, when it dropped in 2009, it marked a pretty radical departure from the series' roots, wouldn't you say?
Oh, completely. For, over a decade, the Resident Evil name had been totally synonymous with survival horror.
That feeling, yeah, the tension, the jump scares.
Right, that almost suffocating sense of tension, dimly lit corners, and those extremely limited resources. Every bullet counted.
Made you really careful.
But RE5, it clearly pivoted, almost aggressively, towards something else entirely.
Towards action.
Indeed. That genre shift was one of the most immediate and widely discussed observations among critics at the time.
You couldn't miss it.
No. There was a near universal consensus that Resident Evil 5 bore, and this is a quote often used, more resemblance to an action game than its predecessors, even RE4.
Which had already started moving that way a bit?
It had, but RE5 went further. It's often cited as the first game in the main series to depart from the survival horror genre completely.
So the impact of that, it wasn't just a minor tweak.
Not at all. It was a fundamental redefinition of the series' core identity, really.
Okay, so give us an example. How did that shift feel in practice? Like with the enemies?
Right, well, consider the enemies you faced. In Resident Evil 4, we had the Ganado, right?
Creepy villagers.
Mutated, threatening, yeah, but they still had that certain eerie dread, that unpredictability that felt like horror.
Definitely.
But in Resident Evil 5, the Magini enemies, the developers explicitly said they were designed to be more violent.
More aggressive.
Exactly. Faster, more aggressive, often swarming you in larger numbers. This change directly supported the more, aggressive, action-oriented combat the game was pushing for.
So it signaled a clear move away from conserving ammo and avoiding fights.
Precisely. It became less about meticulously conserving resources and avoiding encounters, and more about actively engaging in relentless, fast-paced firefights. It was about overcoming waves, not just surviving single encounters.
That makes a lot of sense. So with this really pronounced action game feel, what did that actually feel like moment to moment, beyond just the enemies?
Well, the game's fundamental design shifted dramatically. It was firmly established as a third-person shooter with an over-the-shoulder perspective.
Building on RE4's camera, but more shootery.
Exactly. Leaning much more heavily into the shooter aspect, players were given a really robust arsenal, which was a significant departure from the limited loadouts of earlier games.
Like what? More guns?
Oh, yeah. Several weapons, including handguns, shotguns, automatic rifles, sniper rifles, and grenade launchers, plus melee attacks to finish off stunned enemies.
So a lot more firepower.
A lot more. And this wide array of offensive tools, coupled with the ability to make quick 180-degree turns to evade enemies, really emphasize combat agility over that deliberate, sometimes clunky movement of classic Resident Evil.
Right, the old tank controls.
Gone. The focus was clearly on spectacle and quick reflexes, and that was underscored by the numerous boss battles, many of which contain quick-time events.
Ah, QTEs. 2009.
Very much so. They added that cinematic, reactive element to these huge encounters, further cementing its identity as an action experience, not slow horror.
So the journey became less about careful exploration.
Much less. More about clearing rooms, facing down overwhelming odds with sheer firepower and, quick thinking.
It sounds like a lot was streamlined, overhauled. But what did Resident Evil 5 actually keep from its immediate predecessor, Resident Evil 4? That was a huge game, too.
Oh, definitely. And there were retentions. RE4 itself was critically acclaimed and had already started shifting the series towards action, as you said.
So what carried over?
Well, for instance, players could still upgrade weapons with money and treasure collected in-game by finding items and selling them.
The merchant, basically, though maybe not a person this time.
Right. The system was there.
Yeah.
And you could still heal themselves with herbs. So that familiar, albeit less restrictive, resource management element remained.
Okay. But what about criticisms? Did anything unpopular from RE4 carry over?
Yes, and this was a big one. One crucial point of criticism that surprisingly carried over and was viewed very negatively by some was the inability to run and shoot at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Stand and shoot. That felt dated even then, didn't it?
It really did. Your character had to plant their feet to aim and fire. Some critics called it, quote, a cheap and artificial way to increase difficulty than a technique to enhance tension.
Because it felt clunky in an action game.
Exactly. They argued it hindered the flow of combat, making engagements feel awkward when many other third-person shooters at the time allowed moving and shooting. You had to commit, move, or fire.
Felt jarring.
Could be. Despite that, though, RE5 also introduced several significant quality-of-life improvements and new features that really streamlined the experience.
Like what?
Well, you now faced infected enemies with guns and grenades, which forced more tactical thinking about cover and movement, a new threat level.
Right, up the ante.
And there was the ability to upgrade weapons at any time from the inventory screen without having to find a merchant. That was huge.
Oh, that's a big change. No more backtracking just to upgrade.
Dramatically streamlined progression. Plus, the equipping of weapons and items in real time during gameplay meant no pausing the action constantly to swap gear in a menu.
Kept the pace up.
Definitely. And the inventory system itself got a major overhaul. Each player can store 9 items. Crucially, unlike the previous games, the item size is irrelevant. A herb or a grenade launcher each occupy 1 space.
No more inventory Tetris.
Exactly. And 4 items may be assigned to the D-pad for quick access, much less cumbersome than the old grid systems.
That sounds way better.
It emphasized quick access over spatial puzzle solving. And while the game still features puzzles, their number was noticeably fewer than previous titles.
Again, leaning into action over exploration and puzzles.
Precisely, a more direct combat-focused progression.
Okay, speaking of monumental shifts, maybe the biggest, most defining change in Resident Evil 5 was that fundamental design around cooperative gameplay.
Oh, absolutely. That was radical for the series.
It transformed it from this mostly solitary, often claustrophobic experience
to one built from the ground up for 2 players. It is unequivocally the first game in the Resident Evil series designed for 2-player cooperative gameplay.
The whole game was built for 2.
The entire experience, level design, enemy encounters, everything was crafted with 2 characters in mind. Chris Redfield,
Or returning hero.
seasoned former STARS member, now a BSAA agent, and Shiva Alamar.
The new character, also BSAA. Their
Yeah.
dynamic was central.
Totally. And if you played alone, Shiva was controlled by the game's artificial intelligence, AI.
How was the AI? I remember some chatter about that.
It was a point of contention. Critics noted annoyances, such as its tendency to recklessly expend ammunition and health supplies.
So you ended up babysitting her sometimes.
That could happen, yeah. Which was a drawback for solo play.
Huh.
But for replayability after you beat the story, there was the unlockable option to play as Shiva as the main character.
Oh, that's cool. We'll see from her perspective.
Gave it a fresh angle, and the multiplayer options were robust for the time. 2-player mode online or split screen with a second player using the same console.
How does split screen look? I remember it being a bit weird.
It was unique. Instead of just splitting the screen and stretching, one player's viewpoint is presented in the top half, the other in the bottom half. But each viewpoint is presented in widescreen format.
meaning black bars.
rather than using the full width of the screen, resulting in unused space to the left and right of the two windows. Yeah, small black bars. An interesting choice, trying to keep that cinematic feel.
And the co-op mechanics themselves. How did they force teamwork?
Player interdependence was absolutely core. If one player has critical health, only their partner can resuscitate them, and they will die if their partner cannot reach them.
Okay, so you had to watch each other's backs.
Constantly. Communication, strategic positioning, it genuinely fostered this deep sense of mutual reliance. And to add tension, players are deliberately separated at certain points.
Forcing you to cover each other or work together from different spots.
Create some really nail-biting moments. Plus, you could trade items during gameplay, though notably, weapons cannot be traded with online players.
Still fostered teamwork for managing ammo and health, though.
Definitely. Ensured both players stayed equipped. And it's worth noting, the game's storyline is linear, and interaction with other characters is mostly limited to cutscenes, keeping the focus squarely on Chris and Shiva's partnership. And beyond the main campaign, RE5 also brought back and revamped the Mercenaries minigame.
Oh yeah, Mercenaries. That was a fan favorite, right? Since RE3.
Exactly. First debuted in Resident Evil 3, Nemesis. It was pure combat skill test. Placed the player in an enclosed environment with a time limit.
Score attack, basically.
Pretty much. Players must search for weapons, ammunition, and time bonuses while fighting a barrage of enemies to score as many points as possible before time runs out.
Chaotic fun. Good for practicing the combat.
Absolutely. Offered a ton of replayability for people who really clicked with the new combat mechanics, let them hone skills without the story getting in the way.
And it was pretty accessible. Unlocked after the main story, right? Gave you something to aim for.
Right. It was unlocked when the game's story mode has been completed, a good incentive to finish the campaign.
But the multiplayer for Mercs, wasn't it offline only at first?
That's the curious bit, yeah. The minigame's multiplayer was initially offline only. A release day patch needed to be downloaded to access the online multiplayer modes.
Huh. I remember that causing a few raised eyebrows.
Yeah.
A day one patch for a key mode feature.
It's a small detail, but it really speaks to how online multiplayer integration was still, well, evolving for console games back then, sometimes needing immediate post-launch updates.
So such a dramatic transformation in gameplay, this wasn't accidental. It must have been a massive creative and technological undertaking. Who were the key people behind this global blockbuster?
Oh, the creative forces at Capcom were substantial. It really reflected the company's huge commitment to this title, developed internally with Jun Takuchi as the producer.
Tucci, he did Onimusha and Lost Planet, right? So
Yeah.
action game experience.
Exactly, a track record with large-scale action stuff. And Keiji Inafune, a huge figure at Capcom, served as supervisor. He'd worked on RE2 promotion and the RE4 PS2 port.
Okay, big names. Who directed?
The director was Yasuhiro Umpo, and interestingly, he was a programmer on the original Resident Evil.
Wow, from the original game.
Yeah, so he was one of several staff members who worked on the original game to be involved in RE5. Brought a unique historical perspective to a game-breaking new ground.
That's fascinating. And the writers?
Scenario by Haru Murata and Yoshiaki Hirabayashi, based on a story idea from concept director Kenichi Ueda. It was really a blend of seasoned veterans and newer perspectives driving this ambitious vision.
Sounds incredibly ambitious. What was the timeline? How long did this take, and how big was the team?
It was a massive project. Production began in 2005, so that's about a 4-year development cycle before the 2009 release, a substantial lead time.
Allowed for iteration, I guess.
For sure. And at its peak, over 100 people were working on the project, a considerable team size for that era, highlighting the complexity.
Wow. Any interesting team additions?
Yeah, there was an infusion of talent from within Capcom. Some members from Capcom's Clover Studio, known for distinctive games like Okami and Beautiful Joe, they joined the Resident Evil 5 team in early 2007.
Clover. That must have brought some interesting action game design
It
chops.
likely did. And producer Takuchi's stated vision from the start was clear: to retain the gameplay model introduced in Resident Evil 4 with thematic tastes from both Resident Evil 4 and the original Resident Evil.
So, evolving? Not completely abandoning the past? Blending action with hints of horror.
That seems to have been the intention, yeah. Trying to broaden its appeal while keeping some familiar threads. Digging deeper into the creative directive, some really fascinating choices were made, like the setting, the visual departure.
A daytime setting, right? That was a huge change for Resident Evil.
Huge. While previous Resident Evil games are mainly set at night, The events of Resident Evil 5 occur almost entirely during the day.
Why the change?
Yeah.
Just for Africa?
It was partly that, a combination of the game being set in Africa, but also advances in hardware improvements which allowed increasingly detailed graphics.
Ah, so they could show off more detail in daylight.
Exactly. The fidelity of environments, enemy models could be showcased like never before. Pushed the visuals, created a new kind of tension. Threats were visible, but relentless.
Interesting. What about the characters? How did they approach designing Chris, Jill, and the new character, Shiva?
Well, for returning heroes like Jill and Chris, the approach was to preserve their image and imagine how they would have changed over the passage of time, reflecting their story arcs.
Keeping their signature colors, too, I think.
Yeah, they retained signature colors, green for Chris and blue for Jill, a nice visual nod for longtime fans. Shiva, as the crucial new character, her design went through several times during production.
What were they aiming for with her?
A combination of feminine attraction and the strength of a fighting woman, highlighting her capability as Chris's partner. And, as we mentioned, the Maginis were designed to be more violent than the Ganado, reinforcing that action tone.
Right, and the co-op. Was that planned from day one?
Interestingly, no. The decision to implement co-op was made partway through development for a new experience in a Resident Evil game.
So they added it later. Was there concern it might kill the horror vibe?
There was. Initial concern that a second player would dampen the game's tension and horror. But then they realized co-op could actually increase such factors where one player had to be rescued.
Ah, turning vulnerability into tension. Clever.
A brilliant inversion. And that stand-and-shoot mechanic we talked about.
The movement restriction.
That was kept deliberately to increase player tension by not allowing them to maneuver freely. They wanted players to commit, make tactical choices.
Even if it felt clunky to some. What about outside influences? Any films or other games cited?
Definitely. Producer Takuchi openly cited the film Black Hawk Down as an influence on the setting of Resident Evil 5. You can really see that in the military action aesthetic and the African backdrop.
Yeah, makes sense.
And his own experience on Lost Planet, Extreme Condition, a game known for large-scale combat and co-op that also heavily influenced RE5's development, brought experience in third-person action.
Right. One last thing on choices. Why wasn't it on the Wii? That was the biggest console then.
Takuchi addressed that directly. He was asked, why not the Wii? And he basically said, while it may have been a good decision from a business perspective, the Wii was not the best choice in terms of power and visual quality.
Prioritizing graphics and tech fidelity.
Exactly. He said he was happy with the console choices they had made, clearly putting cinematic presentation first. A bold move, maybe, but it paid off visually.
Shifting focus to the tech underneath it all, Capcom clearly poured a lot of innovation into making RE5 look so good. What engine were they using? Any groundbreaking techniques?
Absolutely. It ran on version 1.4 of Capcom's MT Framework engine.
MT Framework, that powered Dead Rising. Lost Planet 2, right? Known for good visuals.
Exactly. Renowned at the time for efficiency and rendering highly detailed environments and characters, pushed the consoles hard.
And motion capture, that seemed like a big part of it.
Huge. Not just for cutscenes, though. Scenes were recorded by motion capture, for those, giving realism, but they also pioneered something significant.
What was that?
It was the first video game to use a virtual camera system, which allowed the developers to see character movements in real time as the motion capture actors recorded.
Wait, see it live in the game world as they acted?
Precisely. Instead of waiting for post-processing, they could instantly visualize how animations looked during the performance capture.
That must have sped things up incredibly. A game changer.
Huge impact on the animation pipeline, yeah. Set a new standard for integrating performance capture. All human character motions were based on motion capture for that lifelike feel.
And non-human enemies.
Those were animated by hand, so a blend of cutting-edge mocap and traditional animation really showed their commitment to a cinematic, visually rich experience.
Beyond the tech wizardry, there's the human element. The voices, the performers who brought Chris, Shiva, and Wesker to life. Who were they?
The principal actors definitely brought personality. Reuben Langdon voiced Chris Redfield, giving him that familiar stoic determination.
Langdon did Dante too, right? In Devil May Cry.
That's him. Karen Dyer took on the crucial role of Shiva Alomar, both voice and motion capture, and Ken Lally was the imposing Albert Wesker.
Wait, Karen Dyer did both voice and mocap for Shiva.
Yes, and her journey was unique. Her background training and circus skills helped her win the role of Shiva, as Capcom were searching for someone who could handle the physical skills her motion capture required.
Circus skills, wow. So it wasn't just standing in a booth.
Not at all. She embodied Shiva's athleticism. She even performed her own stunts and worked in production on the game for over a year, sometimes working 14 hours a day.
That's incredible dedication.
Yeah.
Really highlights the effort involved.
It really does. Shows how much performance capture talent contributed. Oh, and while Langdon did the mocap for Chris, his voice was actually performed by Roger Craig Smith.
Ah, Roger Craig Smith. He's done tons of voices. Interesting split there.
Yeah.
And what about the sound? Music and sound design are always so key for Resident Evil's atmosphere.
Oh, the soundtrack for RE5 was a massive undertaking. Really reflected those blockbuster cinematic aspirations. Kota Suzuki was the game's principal composer, with others like Hideki Okugawa, Akihiko Narita, and Seiko Kobuchi contributing too.
Was it all electronic or orchestral too?
It was a hybrid, an electronic score, but also, significantly, 15 minutes of orchestral music. And they went big for that.
How big?
Recorded at the Newman Scoring Stage of 20th Century Fox Studios in Los Angeles with the 103-piece Hollywood Studio Symphony.
Wow, a full Hollywood orchestra.
Yep. Wataru Hokoyama conducted other orchestral music and arrangements. Capcom explicitly said they wanted a Hollywood-style soundtrack to increase the game's cinematic value and global interest.
So it was a deliberate statement. This isn't just a game, it's a cinematic event.
Exactly. Elevating games, pushing that perception. And it also had an original theme song titled Pray, composed by Suzuki and sung by Ulamata Niang. Added another distinct layer.
Okay, so once all that incredible development work was happening, the next big challenge was getting the word out right. Building hype for such a significant title, especially one changing the formula.
Absolutely. And the marketing campaign for RE5 was extensive, drawn out, really built anticipation over several years.
When did they even announce it? Feels like ages ago.
They laid the groundwork super early. Capcom announced Resident Evil 5 on July 20, 2005.
2005, wow. When did we actually see anything?
The public first got a real glimpse with a brief trailer at E3 in July 2007. That was quickly followed by the full E3 trailer hitting Xbox Live Marketplace and the PlayStation Store. Wide distribution, immediate buzz.
All right, I remember that first trailer. It caused quite a stir. We'll get back to that.
We will. Then a new trailer debuted on Spike TV's Game Trailers TV in May 2008, keeping momentum going.
And the demos. Demos were huge back then.
Crucial for this game. They gave players that first taste of the new co-op. A demo hit Japan on December 5, 2008 for Xbox 360. Then North America and Europe got it on Xbox 360 on January 26, 2009. And finally, PlayStation 3 on February 2.
Staggered release. Did people play it?
Massively. Worldwide downloads of the demo exceeded 4 million for the two consoles. Over 1.8 million were downloaded between January 26 and January 29 alone.
4 million demo downloads. That's huge engagement. Clearly built excitement.
Immense appetite. It absolutely set the stage for its commercial success. But what's fascinating here is, even before launch, there was this minor, almost comical kerfuffle about the box art.
Box art. What happened?
In January 2009, D+PA magazine reported on some limited edition Xbox 360 box art that claimed the game allowed 16-player offline via System Link.
16 players. In Resident Evil. Offline. How would that even work?
Exactly. Complete surprise. Not what anyone expected. Capcom initially gave this ambiguous statement saying their box art isn't lying.
Which just makes it sound weirder.
Right. Fueled speculation, maybe some ridicule. But they quickly clarified, admitting the info was incorrect and System Link could support only 2 players.
Ah, just a misprint then. But a memorable pre-launch hiccup.
A bit of unexpected drama, yeah.
So, once that hype train was at full speed, how did Capcom actually roll the game out? Platforms, any special editions at launch?
RE5 initially hit PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in March 2009, targeting those main HD consoles. The Windows version followed in September 2009, opening it up to PC gamers.
And cool bundles?
Yep, Microsoft released a limited edition striking red Xbox 360 Elite console, which was sold with the game. Looked pretty sharp.
Oh yeah, I remember the red Xbox. Came with extras too.
It did. An exclusive Resident Evil theme for the Xbox 360 dashboard and a download voucher for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. Sweeten the deal.
Nice cross-promotion. integration. What about PlayStation? Any special integration?
Yeah, Capcom did something innovative with Sony's PlayStation Home platform. They had a dedicated game space on PlayStation Home.
PlayStation Home, that virtual world thing.
That's the one. The space was called Resident Evil 5 Studio Lot, themed after Kajuju, the game setting. It offered Resident Evil 5 related items for sale, events, and full game launching support.
Like a virtual hub for the game.
Exactly. Some areas were even only to owners of Resident Evil 5, rewarding players and building community. Pretty forward thinking for engagement back then.
Interesting. And the PC version? Any unique features?
It had some PC-specific bells and whistles, used NVIDIA's 3D vision technology through DirectX 10, included more costumes and a new mode in the Mercenaries minigame, leveraged PC hardware.
And the game kept coming back, right? Re-releases.
Oh yeah, showed its longevity. Re-released on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in June 2016, physical copies followed. And relatively recently for Nintendo Switch on October 29th, 2019.
Making it accessible on basically everything eventually. Shows Capcom believed in it.
Absolutely. Continued support for a major title.
But the story didn't just end at launch and re-releases. Capcom really expanded the RE5 experience with significant downloadable content and special editions.
That's right. They had a robust DSC strategy to keep people playing. Shortly before the release, Capcom announced that a competitive multiplayer mode called Versus would be available for download soon after launch.
Versus mode, like PvP in Resident Evil.
Yep. It became available April 7, 2009, had 2 online game types. Slayers, a point-based game challenging players to kill Majini, basically score attack against enemies.
Okay.
And Survivors, where players hunt each other while dodging and attacking Majini. Both modes supported 2-player teams, added a competitive angle.
Interesting. Did PC get this DLC?
Not initially. The Windows version of Resident Evil 5 originally did not support downloadable content DLC. That was a sore spot for PC players for a while, though it got fixed later.
Oh. What about story DLC?
Oh,
New
yeah.
campaigns?
Yes, that came via special editions. At the 2009 Tokyo Game Show, Capcom announced Biohazard 5, Alternative Edition for PS3 in Japan.
Alternative Edition, what was different?
It supported the PlayStation Move accessory, Sony's motion controller. More importantly, it included a new scenario, Lost in Nightmares.
Lost in Nightmares, that was the one with Chris and Jill. Right, backstory stuff.
Exactly. Where Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine infiltrate one of Umbrella Corporation co-founder Oswald E. Spencer's estates in 2006.
Huge piece of lore for fans.
Okay, that's significant. What about the West? Did we get that?
We got an even bigger package, Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition for both Xbox 360 and PS3.
Gold Edition. The definitive version.
Pretty much. Included Lost in Nightmares and another campaign expansion, Desperate Escape.
Desperate Escape. Who was in that?
Players controlled Josh Stone and Jill Valentine as they assisted Chris and Shiva during the main game's climax, a parallel story.
Cool. What else was in Gold Edition? It bundled the Versus mode, 4 new costumes, and an alternate Mercenaries mode with 8 new playable characters, new items, and maps. Loads of content.
Wow. So that really bulked up the game. Did it support Move too?
Yes. Supported PlayStation Move with a patch. The distribution was slightly different, though. Xbox 360 version came with a token allowing free download of all DLC, while the PS3 version had all of the new content on a single Blu-ray disc.
Ah, so the PS3 version was more complete on disc.
Right. It was even briefly a free download for PlayStation Plus users in late 2012.
Nice perk. How did PC players eventually get this Gold Edition content?
Through the conversion to Steamworks on March 26, 2015, owners of the original Steam or Games for Windows Live version could acquire a free Steamworks copy of the base game and purchase the new Gold Edition content. Unified the PC experience.
Good. Any lingering issues?
There were some initial hiccups with NVIDIA's 3D vision and mods after the Steamworks switch, but workarounds were found.
Okay. And you mentioned a recent, really important update for PC.
Yes. Huge news for PC players. In 2023, an update was released for the Windows version that removed Games for Windows Live, thus restoring the split-screen co-op feature to the game.
Wait, split-screen co-op is back on PC? That was broken for years because of GFWL.
Exactly. A massive, long-awaited win. Means PC players can finally enjoy the full local co-op experience again years later. Remarkable commitment from Capcom.
Okay, so despite these radical shifts and later updates, how was the game actually received at launch? Metacritic says generally favorable, right? Huh? What did critics really like?
They did give it generally favorable reviews, yeah, and a lot of the praise centered on its presentation, especially the visuals, which were, cutting edge for 2009.
People were blown away by the graphics.
Widely praised. Corey Cohen of official Xbox magazine complimented the game's fast pace and called the graphics gorgeous. That sentiment was common.
Others agreed.
Oh yeah. Joe Juba and Matt Miller of Game Informer went so far as to say it had the best graphics of any game to date. Brian Crescente of Kotaku called it one of the most visually stunning games he had ever played. Adam Sessler of XPlay also noted the exceptional graphics.
Wow, high praise. So visually, a technical marvel for its time.
Absolutely. Made a powerful first impression. The audio also got good marks. The music and voice acting helped bring the characters to life.
And the gameplay itself, the action focus.
Edge magazine praised the gameplay as exhilarating and frantic, so the new action direction clearly worked for some, and replayability was seen as strong.
People wanted to play it again.
Apparently so. Ryan Geddes of IGN wrote that the game had a surprisingly high replay value, and Louis Bedigian of GameZone said it was worth playing through twice in one weekend. Suggests the core loop, while different, was still compelling for many.
But, okay, no game is perfect. Despite the favorable reviews, some aspects did draw criticism, right? Particularly around the controls.
Absolutely. While the overall reception was positive, certain elements were viewed negatively by critics, and the control scheme was definitely a prominent sticking point for many.
What were the main complaints?
Reviewers pointed out several inconsistencies, like you could only take cover from enemy fire in very specific areas, which felt arbitrary in a combat-heavy game.
Limited cover system. What else?
Criticisms included aiming being too slow and the inability to strafe away from or quickly jump back from enemies, combined with the stand and shoot mechanic.
Made it feel less fluid than other shooters at the time.
Exactly, less responsive. And to go back to Joe Juba's point from Game Informer, that inability to move and shoot felt, to him, more like a cheap and artificial way to increase difficulty than a technique to enhance tension.
Less strategic suspense, more just an outdated restriction.
That was the argument. And while Shiva's AI partner was essential for co-op, the AI itself had its annoyances, like its tendency to recklessly expend ammunition and health supplies.
Right, the AI wasting precious items. That would be frustrating.
Could turn your partner into a resource drain you had to manage, detracting from the moment-to-moment action.
Stepping back a bit, these criticisms about controls and the feel of the gameplay, they seem tied to that larger debate about the game's identity, right? Where did it fit in the Resident Evil series?
That's precisely right. Many critics openly considered it to be a departure from the survival horror genre, a decision they lamented. There was a real sense of loss for the series' roots among some fans and critics.
How did they describe the new identity then?
Chris Hudak of Game Revolution just called it a full-on action blockbuster. Stark contrast to the old days. Brian Crescente at Kotaku observed that about halfway through the game, it dropped all pretense of being a survival horror title and unmasked itself as an action shooter title.
Dropped all pretense. Wow, so an unapologetic transformation.
That's how he saw it. Kristen Reed at Eurogamer noted it morphs what was a survival horror adventure into a survival horror shooter. And he worried that this attempt to appeal to action gamers would upset some of the series' fans.
So it wasn't just about gameplay preference, it was about the soul of the franchise.
Exactly. What should Resident Evil be? This game forced that question. It polarized people and undeniably changed the series' trajectory moving forward, setting a new commercial bar even amidst the controversy.
Okay, now, we have to address the elephant in the room. The most significant, most sensitive controversy surrounding Resident Evil 5. The allegations of racism.
Yes, this was, and still is, a major part of the game's legacy.
And just to reiterate for everyone listening, this is a sensitive topic. We are going to meticulously present all sides, perspectives, and findings as they appeared in our sources. We aren't taking sides ourselves.
Absolutely. Our goal is an impartial recounting of what was said and found to give you the full context.
Right. So where did this all start, that first trailer?
That was the catalyst, yes. Resident Evil 5's 2007 E3 trailer was criticized for depicting a white protagonist killing black enemies in a small African village.
That imagery immediately caused backlash, particularly in the West.
It did. Newsweek editor and Guy Kroll famously stated, there was a lot of imagery in that trailer that dovetailed with classic racist imagery. Though he did acknowledge only the preview had been seen, full context was missing.
How did Capcom react initially?
According to producer Jun Takuchi, they were completely surprised by the complaints, suggesting they hadn't anticipated that kind of reaction.
So after that initial surprise and outcry, how did Capcom respond? Did they change things, introduce new elements?
Well, they released a second trailer on May 31st, 2008, and this trailer was widely seen as an attempt to address those concerns.
How so? What does it show?
It revealed a more racially diverse group of enemies and, crucially, the African BSAA agent Shiva Alomar, shown assisting Chris.
Ah, introducing Shiva. Was she added purely because of the controversy?
That was the immediate perception among some critics. They felt that Shiva's character was added to address the issue of racism. However, Karen Dyer, Shiva's actress, directly contradicted that. She said the character had been in development before the first trailer was released.
So maybe a planned character, not just reactionary.
That's what she maintained. Key figures at Capcom also addressed it directly. Takuchi denied that complaints about racism had any effect in altering the design.
He denied changing anything.
Explicitly, he acknowledged different cultures may have had differing opinions on the trailer, but expected no further complaints once the game was released and people saw the whole picture.
What about others at Capcom?
Producer Masachika Kawada also addressed it. He said, "We can't please everyone. We're in the entertainment business. We're not here to state our political opinion or anything like that. It's unfortunate that some people felt that way."
So it's sort of an artistic independence stance, focusing on entertainment.
That seemed to be the message, yeah, even amidst the serious nature of the claims.
Okay, so as the game actually got closer to release and launched, did opinions shift? Or did critics and people involved remain divided on the racism allegations?
Viewpoints definitely remained sharply divided. It really highlighted the complexity and personal nature of the issue.
Give us some examples of those differing views.
Sure. Dan Whitehead, in a Eurogamer preview in February 2009, expressed deep concern it might become a video game controversy. He felt it plays so blatantly into the old cliches of the dangerous, dark continent and the primitive lust of its inhabitants that you'd swear the game was written in the 1920s.
Wow, strong words. Did he think Shiva helped?
No, he felt the issues became more outrageous and outdated as the game went on, and that the light-skinned Shiva just made the overall issue worse in his view, didn't counteract the themes he saw.
Okay. What about other critics?
Hillary Goldstein at IGN took a different stance. He believed that the game was not deliberately racist, and while he personally didn't find it offensive, he acknowledged that others would due to the subjective nature of offensiveness. Recognizing perception is key.
So, acknowledging nuance. Anyone just dismiss it.
Chris Hudak at Game Revolution dismissed the allegations as stupid. Pretty blunt.
And Karen Dyer, Shiva's actress, what was her take?
She also dismissed the claims. She's of Jamaican descent and stated firmly that, in over a year of working on the game, she never encountered anything racially insensitive and would not have continued working there if she had.
So a strong defense from someone directly involved really shows the range of reactions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. No single, unified take on the game's racial implications at launch. Highly personal and contextual.
This controversy clearly went beyond just game reviews. It led to formal investigations, academic scrutiny, treating the game as a significant cultural artifact. What did those more official inquiries find?
Right, the depth of the controversy prompted that external scrutiny. Wesley Yin-Poole at videogamer.com noted no expert opinion had been sought initially, so he sought out Len Bowman, senior lecturer in social anthropology at the University of Kent.
An academic perspective. What did Bowman say?
His assessment was quite direct. He considered the racism accusations silly, arguing the game had an anti-colonial theme, and that complainers might be expressing an inverted racism which says that you can't have scary people who are black.
An interesting counter-argument. Focusing only on the race of antagonists might be biased itself.
That was his point, ignoring broader context. There was also a specific visual allegation about black men dragging off a white woman.
I remember hearing about that scene. What was the finding?
Yin-Poole investigated and stated the allegation was incorrect and the single man dragging the woman was not obviously black. This specific scene was even submitted to the British Board of Film Classification, the BBFC, for evaluation.
The official UK ratings board looked at it. What did they say?
Sue Clark, BBFC head of communications, confirmed Yin-Poole's finding. There is only one man pulling the blonde woman, and he is not black either. As the whole game is set in Africa, it is hardly surprising that some of the characters are black. We do take racism very seriously, but in this case, there is no issue around racism.
So official bodies investigated specific claims and found them unsubstantiated based on the actual content.
Correct. That added an authoritative layer to the debate, finding no grounds for racism in those specific instances they reviewed.
But even with those official findings and direct responses, the discussion didn't just stop, did it? It seems like it evolved, leading to deeper academic analysis in the years after release.
That's a crucial point. The conversation became much bigger, highlighting the game's cultural impact. Academics continued to grapple with it.
What kind of analysis came later?
Well, for instance, Harrer and Pichelmeyer, writing for a games philosophy conference in 2015, they considered Resident Evil 5 to be yet another moment in the history of commodity racism.
Commodity racism, what does that mean?
They argued it continued a historical trend from the late 19th century onwards, allowing popular depictions of racial stereotypes to enter European homes. They felt Africa was presented from a Western gaze, and authentic blackness conforms to the projected fantasy of predominantly white gaming audience.
So a critique of potentially continuing harmful historical tropes, even if unintentional.
That was their argument. Looking at underlying structures. Similarly, Paul Martin, in Games and Culture in 2016, described the game's theme as dark continent, saying it drew on imagery of European colonialism and depictions of blackness reminiscent of 19th century European theories on race.
These academic critiques really push beyond immediate perception into deeper cultural and historical contexts.
Exactly. Analyzing potential underlying narratives the game might have invoked. And again, just to be clear, these are the varying perspectives and analyses presented by academics and critics in our sources.
Right, we're conveying these ideas for your understanding, not endorsing any specific viewpoint. It's about showing the breadth of the discussion.
Precisely.
Okay, so despite all those critical nuances and the really significant controversies we've just discussed, Resident Evil 5 was, by the numbers, an absolute commercial juggernaut. It left a huge mark on Capcom and the franchise.
Undeniably, its commercial performance was impressive right from the start, showed immediate widespread appeal. The PS3 version was the top-selling game in Japan in the 2 weeks following its release, selling nearly 320,000 units. Strong start at home.
How about elsewhere? Like the UK?
In the UK, it became the fastest-selling game of the franchise for Resident Evil, and at the same time, it was the biggest Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 game release in the country at that point. Powerful debut in key Western markets.
Set the stage for long-term success, though. What are the total sales figures like now? They must be massive.
They are truly staggering, especially with all the iterations. According to our sources, updated as of December 2024, Resident Evil 5 had sold 9.5 million units worldwide on PS3 and Xbox 360 with its original release.
9.5 million just on the original consoles.
And that's not all. The Gold Edition had sold an additional 2.4 million units on those same platforms.
Okay, so that's nearly 12 million already. What about the newer console versions?
The PS4 and Xbox One versions sold another 3.4 million units combined, bringing the grand total sales to a remarkable 15.3 million units.
15.3 million. That's colossal. Shows that despite the divisions, it massively broadened the series' commercial reach.
Absolutely redefined its ceiling, proved a controversial game could still be a sales juggernaut. Huge win for Capcom's bottom line.
Was it Capcom's best-selling game ever for a while?
For a time, yes. The original release of Resident Evil 5 was Capcom's best-selling individual edition of a game until March 2018, when Monster Hunter World finally surpassed its tally at the time.
Okay, but how does it rank within the Resident Evil franchise itself? Still the top seller.
Here's the important context. It was still the best-selling title in the Resident Evil franchise as of 2018, and remained so as of December 2024 when not including remakes.
Ah, the remake caveat. That's key.
Very key, because the 2019 remake of Resident Evil 2 has sold 15 million copies, basically matching RE5's total across all its versions. For comparison, the original 1998 release of RE2 sold 4.96 million.
So RE5 original plus re-releases is right up there with the massive RE2 remake. Still an undisputed top performer. Monumental success.
No question about it.
And beyond just selling millions, RE5 also got quite a bit of recognition from the industry itself, right? Awards, nominations.
It certainly did. Garnered significant industry accolades showing appreciation for its technical and design achievements despite the controversies.
Any major wins?
A big one was winning the prestigious Award of Excellence at the 2009 Japan Game Awards. Major recognition from its home country.
Nice. What about nominations?
Plenty of those, showing it was part of the industry conversation. Nominated for Best Action Adventure Game and Best Console Game at the 2008 Game Critics Awards. even before release. In 2009, nominated for Best Action Game at the IGN Game of the Year Awards. Reflects that successful action pivot.
What about the technical side? Audio, visuals.
Those got a lot of nods. Nominated for Best Sound Editing and Computer Entertainment at the 2010 Golden Reel Awards. The audio team especially was celebrated, got 5 nominations at the 2010 Game Audio Network Guild Awards.
5 nominations just for audio? Like what?
Included the big one, Audio of the Year, plus Best Cinematic Cutscene Audio, Best Dialogue, Best Original Vocal Song Pop for Prey, and Best Use of Multi-Channel Surround. A real sweep, highlighting the quality sound experience.
Wow. Any nominations for performance or art?
Yes. Karen Dyer's compelling portrayal of Sheva Alomar was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Character Performance at the 13th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards. And the game itself got nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Art Direction. Showcased the overall excellence in presentation and character work. #outro.
So after all that, what does this all mean? We've taken a really comprehensive deep dive into Resident Evil 5.
Yeah.
A game that, as we've seen, represents this fascinating, undeniably pivotal turning point.
Yeah, in a legendary series and maybe in gaming as a whole.
For sure.
The broader significance here, it's immense. We've traced its genre-defining shift towards action.
Which was huge.
Explored its innovative co-op design that really redefined player interaction for the series. Delved into the meticulous, technologically advanced development.
The mocap, the engine.
Recognized its undeniable commercial success across years and platforms. And of course, navigated those complex, difficult conversations it sparked around representation and cultural perception.
It really sits at this intersection of innovation, ambition, and intense scrutiny.
It really does.
And Resident Evil 5, I think, ultimately pushes us to consider a fundamental question. Can a game that faces such significant, deeply felt cultural criticism still be considered a monumental success in gaming history?
It's a tough question. Success measured how? Commercially? Critically? Culturally?
Exactly. And more broadly, how do we, as players, as engaged consumers of media, how do we navigate these complexities in the art we choose to consume?
That tension continues to reverberate through the industry today, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a conversation worth having.
These are definitely questions worth pondering long after the credits roll. Reminds us that a game's impact can extend far beyond just the gameplay itself.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Till next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep being well informed.